As she said, I am Charles Aldrich, and I'm running for 4th District. And if you want to take a look at my website, it's on Facebook at Aldrich US Rep. So on the back of my card is something that I'd like to have happen, which is people, in order to pursue happiness, need their own funds. So I will work to stop the government from confiscating funds from people who are making $350 a week or less, or $1,500 a year or a month or less. Because these people are working for poverty wages, and they shouldn't be having to fork over their money because the government thinks that they can spend it more wisely, which most people understand that they don't spend it more wisely. Another thing, well, I was reading a story about somebody who was working for a company, and they were living out of their car, and apparently they had made bad choices because they were making over $13 an hour. And my first thing is learn to live within your means. The second thing is you're working for a company that's paying you a decent wage, because $13 an hour is about the median income for people who are working. The third thing is the government is reducing your income by taxes and fees and whatever else they're taking out of your check. So I am opposed to the government taking taxes, especially from people who are only making $350 a week or less, because that is a poverty wage. Another thing that I'd like to see happen is most people self-medicate. If you take aspirin, you are self-medicating. If you drink alcohol, that's a self-medication. If you smoke marijuana, suddenly that's criminal, but it's self-medication, because there's a lot of things that people will take that other people say, no, you shouldn't do that, but we're not in charge of each other. We're in charge of what we do personally, so long as it doesn't hurt anyone else. So, any questions from the audience here on what they'd like to see happen in the federal government? Okay, no questions. I don't have to answer any then. Another thing that's going on is the military is an aggressive military, and it's offensive because they think they have control, so they go into other countries and take control. With the military, the way it used to be is it was defensive. If somebody attacked us, then we would attack them. But I went through research on what happens with the offensive and the defensive, and the Soviet Union was offensive, and they had major military tools such as missiles to attack. We had defensive missiles that cost about 1% of what they were going to throw at us. And if we change our military from offensive to defensive, we can spend less than 10% of what we currently spend and still have a strong military. Some background, I was in the Marines for 4 years. Our current representative did not serve any time in the military. I went to college after the Marines. He had an educational deferment, and he didn't get a degree. I got a degree in engineering. It's a 4-year degree, and I also have a patent that the product is listed with Walmart and Sears. So I have done a few things. And as far as actually living my life, I've done some other amazing things. After I served in the military, I rode my bicycle to 49 states. And for some reason, I settled in Iowa. It's a nice place to be. And I'd like to represent the people of Iowa. While I was in the military, I also took up skydiving, and I've got over 400 skydives. I survived that because I believe in safety and taking controlled risks. Because always jump with 2 parachutes in case one doesn't work. So I got to know some people in skydiving that they took pictures of me and they were the world champs. And I got to skydive with them. They were influential, and it was in California, so they took some of the film to make movies with. And so my kids watch. I've got 3 kids. They're adults. There's 2 girls and a boy. And they'll go to the movies and they'll say, "Dad, you're in this movie." And I go, "Okay, which movie?" They were growing up one time and I said, "Well, let's go be on TV." And they said, "No, we can't just go be on TV." And I said, "Okay, well." We went out, bought candy, and the store was just opening after it had survived a fire. And the camera crews were there, and they were on TV. As far as representing the people, like I said, you really need to be able to get the medicines that are most helpful for what your conditions are, not just what the government thinks is going to be most beneficial for them, because the major pharmacy corporations are the ones who are writing laws and influencing the legislators to write laws that limit who is going to be able to use those medicines that they're trying to sell. And they're restricting the medicines that are actually more helpful. Any more questions yet? I can keep going. Yes, go right ahead.
I would like to know what you feel like you would attend back to Washington. Because we know we have a person in the 4th district that's virtually done nothing.
Okay.
And so you have some, you have some legislation that you think needs to be addressed, and what would those things be?
The first thing is making sure that the federal government doesn't take money, confiscate money from people who are making poverty wages. The next thing is that I believe we need an environment that we can survive in. So what's happening in Congress is not good for the environment, because we've got chemical companies that are putting chemicals into corn, pesticides and herbicides, that they continue to be in force for 10 years. And I'd like to have that restricted so that they have to be inert by 6 months. So, 1, clean water. Or I should say, number 2, clean water. 1, protecting the people within the district.
Is there legislation there now, or would it have to be introduced?
It would have to be introduced.
So you're saying that you would introduce
Yes, I would.
that have an effect on those things?
Yes. I would actually do something because, like I said, I've done things prior to this. I've worked for companies where I design products, design processes to make the company more effective. I actually do work, and I would work for the people that I represent, and I'd be open to what they're trying to bring to me and say, okay, what do you need, and what is your end result that you desire? So first off, I'd listen to the people, find out what they want. Second off, I'd find out how much it costs to implement it, and then see if I can get that done. And I'd be willing to work with anyone in Congress and everyone there.
Okay, also you would be in conflict with the biggest
less harmful to the environment. That's one that I have to work with the chemical companies for them to develop chemicals that are less harmful for the environment, and work with the farmers to find out how they're using what they're currently using. Because I was talking to a farmer this last weekend, and he said they're using less chemicals. I said, but they're more concentrated, so the effect on the environment is the same. He goes, well, yeah, that's right. Hesitantly, but I had the assumption correct. So it's not like it's going to be stop using them today and we'll figure out what to use, but more of we don't like what we have now. It's a transition into something that is going to be good for the environment and good for the people. I'm not going to tear apart what we have just because I don't like it. It's like, okay, we have where we are, assess that, and say, okay, where do we want to go, and find a way to get there. I'm not trying to destroy society and build it under my own desires. I'm trying to say, okay, we have problems. How do we fix the problems, and where do we go, and what's the direction that we go? It's like we have people who are living in this society now. I don't want to say, well, you can't do what you're doing now and not give them an out. It's like, okay, transition to this process. Does that make sense? Good. I got one satisfied person here. Anyone else got a question? Well, that was pretty quick. Just about 15 minutes. So, if you want someone who will actually enter legislation that people are going to be happy with and pleased with, it's not going to be a stop now and we'll figure out. It's going to be assess now, figure out where we want to go, find a track to get there, and hopefully with that happening, there's going to be less stress on the people that I'm representing. Anyone else got any questions? Don't care about my shoe size or what kind of underwear I wear? I've heard those other silly questions. So anyway, thank you for your time.